Έχετε ακίνητη περιουσία στην πατρίδα? Ήρθε η ώρα να τακτοποιήσετε τα περιουσιακά σας στοιχεία. Η συμβουλευτική εταιρεία ICS ειδικεύεται στην προάσπιση συμφερόντων των Ελλήνων ομογενών. Αναλαμβάνει όλες τις εκκρεμότητες των ακινήτων σας, οπουδήποτε και αν βρίσκονται στην Ελλάδα. Από την εκτίμηση της ακίνητης περιουσίας, την αγορά και πώληση, έως και τη γενική διαχείριση αυτής. Με γραφεία σε Νέα Υόρκη, Τορόντο, Μόντρεαλ και Αθήνα και με εξειδικευμένο προσωπικό για την καλύτερη εξυπηρέτησή σας, είμαστε σε θέση να τακτοποιήσουμε κάθε κληρονομική, φορολογική και διοικητική σας υπόθεση. Μεταφράζουμε, συντάσσουμε πληρεξούσια, καταβάλουμε για λογαριασμό σας πληρωμές και ρυθμίζουμε όλες τις υποχρεώσεις σας στην Ελλάδα. ICS, η μεγαλύτερη ελληνική εταιρεία παροχής συμβουλευτικών υπηρεσιών στη Βόρεια Αμερική.
How do we strengthen our relationships through real estate? So I'm excited to join two friends, I consider them friends, Tim Silianos from Remax and Anastasios Mousas from ICS to join me to talk about real estate, living, enjoying, and investing. Give them a big round of applause. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. I'll have one of you on that side. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Are both your mics on? Let's test them. 1, 2, 3. Can we make sure that mics are both working? So while we're figuring it out, I have to say again, as a commercial litigator, a lot of the times I see what happens when things go wrong.
Yes.
When investments go wrong, when real estate fails, when people are unable to close. So I want to get a sense of what's going in the market, both in the Canadian market, but in the Greek market. So Tim, I'm going to start with you. And you have 20 plus years of experience. You're the past president. We see what has happened when real estate firms collapse for various reasons very recently. We don't name names. And we keep hearing about that this is a buyer's market. What does that entail? And what should people be aware of?
Well, thank you. First and foremost, it's an honor to be here and to be a part of this event. It's my first Greek Experience event, and I look forward to many more. And I want to thank you for being our moderator. Being a buyer's market is a comment or a topic that needs to be addressed right now, especially with the media that we're having. Is it really a buyer's market? And I would say that there are areas of the city and in areas within the industry where it is a buyer's market. However, you have to be very careful when you approach real estate because it's not a buyer's market in every neighborhood of Toronto. So as an example this morning, I've been on the phone with several of our agents. We have about 400 agents in our brokerage dealing with multiple offers. So how could it be a buyer's market and still have multiple offers? And that's something that needs to be discussed as well, because now is the time where people are looking at it as an opportunity from an affordability standpoint to see if now's the time to start entering the marketplace. So we have to separate the market both by neighborhood and by segment. So we look at condominiums. Are condominiums a buyer's market? I would say yes, in a certain size and price point. But once you go into a 1+1 bedroom or 2-bedroom condominium, it's a lifestyle decision that people are looking at. And it's not a buyer's market. As a matter of fact, there's more activity in it. It would be more of a balanced to buyer's market. If you look at the freehold market, you look at townhomes. Townhomes are not a buyer's market. If anything, they're the most affordable entry point for most people looking at buying right now. Semi-detached and freehold homes have a lot of activity. So you have to really be very careful when you're talking about the market and get educated on what area of the city and what type of segment you're looking at.
So what is the best area to buy as a buyer's market?
So there isn't, you're looking at transitional markets traditional neighborhoods. I'll give you an example. Being of European Greek, obviously I'm Greek, and watching a lot of Greeks who came to Toronto at the beginning in the 60s and early 70s, and they all congregated through different neighborhoods in downtown Toronto. And then when the mid-80s came around in 90s, they all moved out of Toronto. But what they really did was rent out the original houses they had. And those homes were kept in the family for many years. And we're finding that now, as our parents have aged and if people have been looking to relocate, they're starting to go back into the neighborhoods where everything first began. And I would say that those traditional neighborhoods are primarily some of the best in the city because they are still the most affordable and the most opportunity to renovate and live in. So you're looking at anywhere through the East Yorks or the Dover Courts or the places along the Bloor Street Viaduct where people have first come into the city. That's where people are really looking at buying again. Because as people go back to work with the mandates being behind us, you're seeing more and more people taking advantage of those neighborhoods right now.
I think people are taking some notes for the next purchase coming up.
Yeah.
So Tasso, I'm going to move to you, Greece. How would you classify the Greek market in terms of real estate? And does it also vary by region the way we just talked about Toronto?
I want to thank you, Dora, for being here for a second year. We're very happy to be here. And last year we talked about the state administration, property management, and this year I'm happy that we were talking about real estate. And I'm very happy to welcome Tim because he is the real estate expert, and we have partnered up so we can assist people that are interested in purchasing or selling properties in Greece, and we look forward to a wonderful year. It is the time right now for whoever is thinking of purchasing to do so. After 10 years of financial crisis and harsh economic times and 2 years of the pandemic, the real estate market in Greece right now has shown some growth and development, and there are places in Greece that even during those times they still had some interest for purchasing. And then Greece receives over 30 million in tourists. There are 7 million Greeks living outside of Greece, and they visit every year, and as they're getting older in age, they want to spend more time in Greece, they want to renovate their paternal homes, and they want to purchase. There are opportunities. It is a little bit difficult. When you make a purchase of a property, it's a big decision, and when you do not live there, you do not know the laws, it becomes a little bit more difficult. In the big urban centers in Athens, a lot of people, besides having a vacation home, they're looking also into investment opportunities to purchase a property to use it during the summer months, but also to rent it out and make some extra income. There have been changes, but it doesn't really matter. People buy properties for different reasons, different areas. Some people want to go to where they come from. Other people are looking that don't have ties with Greece. They want to be in the Athens Riviera and the Glyfada near the sea. You have the people that want to have a property in the islands. So all depends. It's very diverse. It's very diverse.
And it was interesting. I was in Greece this summer, and we were driving on the Athenian Riviera to see the first high-rise that Greece has ever seen, and it's unreal. And we talked a little bit about the difficulties. I'm going to ask, let's say I want to buy a property in Glyfada or Elliniko. What does that entail for, number one, someone who has Greek citizenship, but also for someone who doesn't?
Doesn't really make a difference. To buy property, first of all, you need the money, and if you've decided to invest and to buy a property, you don't need to be a Greek citizen. You just need a tax identification number, and you need a good lawyer to do the title searches, and then you engage in the purchase of the property. Having said that, there are certain areas in Greece especially the cities and the prefectures that border with other countries, that in order to purchase property, you either need to be a Greek citizen or of Greek nationality or EU citizen. Otherwise, you simply required a permit from the Ministry of National Defense. But for mainland Greece, as you mentioned, the Athens Riviera and the Elliniko project, the land development where they're transforming the area where the old international airport used to be, and they're making it into condos, parks, marinas, casinos. It's really amazing what's happening there. You do not need to be a Greek citizen. It helps, like everywhere that you want to live and work or to own property, it helps to have the citizenship of that place. But if you have permanent residency, or simply if you're not looking in residing in Greece for more than 3 months, you don't have to be a Greek citizen to purchase property. What you need to do is to be careful, like with any purchase of property, and you got to do your due diligence, and then you can own property in Greece.
And I heard a collaboration between the two coming. So, how will you be assisting the Greek Canadians who are interested in buying real estate in Greece?
Well, the only Greek experience we want is the one that's fun, right, in Greece. But whoever's dealt with real estate in Greece, it's far from a Greek experience. Everybody in this room, or people who want to inquire, their biggest concern is, what they're used to having here in Canada and the way that real estate is transacted in Canada. And it's very different in Greece. So what we are trying to do is assist in navigating through this process, educating the Toronto Greek citizens, preparing them for what they will need, and having all their paperwork, that would be my colleague on the right here, having the paperwork that's required. From my standpoint as the realtor, with my relationships and the knowledge that we have and the way that things are transacted, we want to kind of funnel these down into a proper format and set the expectations correctly, but also set the expectations of the realtors or the people in Greece to understand what you're expecting, what you're used to, and how things should be done. And then build a greater communication, with the consumer, being you here, so then that way you're not kind of in the dark and having 7 realtors or 12 realtors or 15 realtors and not knowing who's working for who. And again, when you have a contract to sell your property in Toronto, it's one agent. When you're in Greece, it could be 10. It's very, very different. So we're just trying to create some stability and guide you the proper way.
And Tim, I understand you were in Greece a few months ago for a big real estate conference.
I was, yeah. So I was a keynote speaker for RE/MAX Greece. I spoke to over 700 people and had the opportunity to meet a lot of the RE/MAX associates all over the country. I was there for 3 days. It was an honor to be there. But it also got my other side of my mind working, of the opportunities that exist, to help our people here, and take away all that guesswork, take away all that uncertainty, and create more trust in the process.
I think you highlight a big point. I'm going to come to you, Tass, on that. The issues, the problems, the bureaucracy. I've heard so many stories of people dealing years after years with the properties. The land titles is not transferred. They can't purchase. They're having so many issues. And at least there is a perception, and it could be a wrong perception, that Greek real estate is difficult. It drags. It creates problems. So Tasso, is it true? And second to that is, how do you help them? How do you ensure there's a benefit for people to be like, έχω το κεφάλι μου ήσυχο, things are going well, and I can deal with this property, whether buying or selling?
Well, I will agree with Kim, and I will to his thoughts, to his remarks, I will tell you exactly how things are. For over 15 years, my firm has been assisting people that have interest in Greece with their estate administration and to mostly acceptance of inheritance and putting the properties in their names. And then, since we would help them to put the properties in their names, they needed somebody to file their taxes, to deal with the property administration. property management, and we did. And then they would come and say, now it's time for us to buy, to sell. And then I would refer them to real estate agents because that was not my work, my area of expertise. And then they would come back and, because they're used to doing business in a certain way here, and they would expect that it's similar in Greece, and it's not. And then I had a very difficult time, so I decided to extend my services and help them with the real estate. But that's not what we do. So I was looking, and I developed my own real estate department within my firm, but then I needed the experts. I needed people that want to buy or sell, that happen to be living here, to do so in Greece the way that they're accustomed here. I will take care of all the legal representation and all the work that needs to be done. Accounting, you have to understand, a real estate transaction in Greece entails the services of 5 different professionals. You have the lawyer that does the title searches, that prepares the drafts, the private agreements, and represents the client. You have the bookkeeper or accountant that will prepare all the documents from the tax perspective, tax clearance certificates. Then you have an engineer, topographer, that will prepare all the different certificates required for the transaction. And then you have the real estate agent that actually finds the property for purchase or for sale. And then at the end, the most important job, although that professional does the least of work, but executes the deed, is the notary in Greece. And in each of those professionals have a part in the real estate transaction without necessarily know the job of the other professional. And since we live here, you need somebody to actually coordinate and act on your behalf by virtue of power of attorney. A real estate transaction in Greece takes anywhere between 3 to 6 months, 3 months at best. So if you live here, you're gonna be going back and forth. So what we're trying to do is, we're gonna have the real estate experts here, where we'll find the clients, and then when it comes to all the paperwork and all the work that needs to be done in Greece, that's where I come in. So that this individual, this client, will at the end up with a property, and when he or she is in Greece, they will not have to be running from one office to another and spending a good part of their vacation time, dealing with all the paperwork. So they will have the full experience, and they will, at the end, have the property, and fulfill their dream. So that's what we're trying to accomplish.
I do like this streamlined process. I'm the kind of person, if I could delegate everything, I would. So I'm really happy with it. So Tim?
If I may add, the biggest goal is to find a property that you want in Greece from a person in Toronto who owns the property in Greece. That's one of our biggest goals. We're not trying to cast a net of sellers in Greece. There are many Greek Canadians that have real estate in Greece that want to sell their property in Greece. And there are many Greek Canadians who want to buy in your city, village in Greece. Imagine having a buyer and a seller who are both living and working in Toronto to do the transaction. That's what you call a smooth transaction. That's the best case scenario. And then if you want to find a property in Greece and we cannot find a suitable seller, an owner from Toronto who owns a property, it doesn't matter which city or village or anywhere in Greece, then we would cast the net further and we would try to find something else. But it's very important to understand our collaboration is to have a willing seller in Toronto and a willing buyer in Toronto and connect them in Toronto. That's fair?
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that's a key word. It goes back to the streamline, because we speak the same language. As Greek Canadians, we have a very different perspective versus the Greeks in Greece and how things work. And I know we'll be wrapping up shortly, but I do have one question for each of you. So Tim, since you gave your advice in terms of marrying the two, it's kind of like a matchmaking of properties in Canada. If you had one piece of advice for someone saying, hey, I want to go to Greece and buy property, what would that advice be?
Well, I mean, we've started our journey in looking for a property in Greece as well, and it's not an overnight exercise. It does take several trips, to go to different neighborhoods to find your happy place, as I call it, right? The one thing that I've discovered very early in our journey, and what I would recommend, is just because you found the property does not mean it's been built on the right foundation. And I don't mean the right foundation of bricks and mortar. I mean the right foundation. Was it built within the limits of your own property? Or did somebody actually extend their property and they own a piece of somebody else's property? Or did they build onto the civic road? Have the people done the proper, disclosures when it comes to, the right family members who have agreed to dispose of the property? There's so much more than just finding the property. So I think that first and foremost, you may have found your piece of heaven in Greece, but you've got to be very cautious on your first steps and make sure that you take a step back and prepare yourself for the journey ahead, which is 3 to 6 months of making sure that everything is done correctly.
And I think that goes to the legal aspect of it, and I'll
Right.
chime in on that. I was in Epidavros this summer, and we're on a beach and it was beautiful, and then we put the GPS how we get back to Athens. So the GPS takes us through the katsikodromis, I call them, like it's tiny little streets, you think you're gonna fall. And ultimately the GPS said that you're gonna hit the main road. So we're driving up, and guess what? The road stopped because someone decided to build on the road that connects it to the main street. And that goes back to the legal issues that could happen. So get a good lawyer. Unbiased opinion. That's a final question for you. Since you're so versed into the language of real estate in Greece in general and Canada, what are some of the trends that we're seeing in the Greek market for this year, next year?
Well, there have been changes. If you follow the news, you'll see that in the big urban centers, especially in Athens, where people had converted their apartments or houses for short-term rentals, Airbnbs, they no longer give permits because there's a big housing problem and people cannot find affordable rentals because everybody is trying to rent to tourists. There was, for many years, with the purchase of a property up to 250,000, you could get, the so-called golden visa, which was a permanent residence for 5 plus 5 years, and that was something that a lot of people were looking forward to. They have changed the requirements and the amount that you have to invest, and they have raised it to 800,000. And because of that, you see other areas that are outside of Athens or other cities that because you cannot afford to buy for the golden visa, for example, you're looking at other cities. So although you had traditionally certain areas, some islands very famous, Athens, the big urban centers around across Greece, now you see that there is a lot of growth and development and interest for purchase of property all over Greece. So, and you have a government that is also business friendly. And the banks for many, many years were not lending money for the purchase of properties. Now you see banks that are giving mortgages. Yes, it is a little bit difficult if you do not live in Greece and you can, you don't have the financials. But there are banks now they have programs where they will look at your financials from abroad. So lending is also available, and opportunities for purchase properties everywhere in Greece. So it is a good time, but it requires work. But then it doesn't really matter how difficult or complicated it is. If you decide to retain to engage professionals to do that, at the end, they're doing all the work. And it's not that you're going to be spending more money. At the end, you'll be saving money. That's what we're trying to do here.
And thank you. And I think you touched on the foreign investments, and we saw that in our home country as well. We saw the markets in Vancouver, and we saw the markets in Toronto that were affected by these foreign investments that only live in the country. And before we conclude, I think Tim has a few remarks to make.
Yeah, just the bureaucracy is real in Greece, right? I'll give you an example. This past summer, I went to the bank. I have a valid, I got some laughter already. I have my papers, I have my bank book, I have everything ready to go. I walk in, I ask for 6,000 euros. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Sirianos, I can only give you 5,000 euros. Could you come back in a couple of days for the extra 1,000? I'm like, no problem. I take 5,000 euros, I go back. I tell my lovely wife, I know we're on holidays, but I have to go back in a couple of days. So I go back in a couple of days and I ask for 1,000 euros, and they said to me, "Oh, I can't give you 1,000 euros. Your paperwork's not up to date." And I'm like, I just took 5,000 euros out. So you got to be prepared for these things. But the last thing that I do want to share is evaluating property in Greece. This is where the value comes in a great deal, because the MLS system and the way we have our network here, we are truly spoiled and blessed. Everything is tic-tac-toe, everything is organized. Unfortunately, prices are all over the place. So you need to make sure that you align yourself and educate yourself with other professionals. And I want to go back to the previous, that's why I wanted to bring that comment up from our previous question conversation. As a buyer going to Greece, you need to take the time and get the guidance that we're describing right now to prepare yourself so you don't wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I bought something I can't build on, or two, I'll overpay for something I shouldn't have, right?
And I do think everyone has these comic stories of dealing with the bank systems or anything in Greece.
He was very polite. There's no MLS system, let's put it this way. And real estate agents in Greece, it's not, they're not regulated. It's not like here. Yes, there's associations, there is support, and you can get the license to be a real estate agent, but the majority of them they're not licensed. Anybody can print some business cards and practice this profession. And slowly things are changing, but we're not there yet. And everything is difficult. The banking, because the first thing, or you would think that the easiest thing to do is, since you're thinking of spending time in Greece, you want to purchase property in Greece, the easiest thing in your mind is opening a bank account. You got to think again. It's not that easy. But as soon as you're established, you have your tax ID number, you have your bookkeeper, your accountant, finally you get your bank account going, and you learn how things work. It's not like it's bad or it's bad or good. We're doing everything right here, and in Greece they're doing everything wrong there. That's not the case. It's a different country with their own set of laws, their own practices. Once you understand, your life will become easier. If you do not understand the process, you'll be going around in circles. And if you do not go to professionals and you hear the advice or the guidance of your friends and relatives and your cubados and your uncles, they may have good intention, but that's not their job. And when it comes, another problem that people, when we live here, we have everything set up. Now, we might be of Greek descent and some of us are Greek citizens, but a lot of us are not. Although I said it doesn't make a difference if you're a Greek citizen or not, but you gotta exist. So when you would retain a professional, a Greek lawyer, a Greek notary, and they'll give you a list of documents, required documents to do anything in Greece, it's all Chinese to you. You don't understand what I'm saying. Not because you cannot read it in Greek. It's not the question of it being in Greek or in English. It's a different way of doing business. And they're going to ask you for your tax ID number. You don't know what that is. They're going to ask you for your Greek bank account or for your Greek mobile number in order, because everything is electronic, and you need to have access to the taxes net system. It's like, think of it as logging into CRA. So if somebody does not properly explain to you, and if you do not get the documents from Canada in a way that can be used in Greece, nothing will be happening. But once you get all this, then things will be much, much easier. And then you'll have your property, you'll have everything in order, and then you'll be able to enjoy yourself while you're in Greece and not to worry about the bureaucracy. Because we have bureaucracy in Canada too. It's not that everything's perfect here, but we know how to navigate through this system. The same way, if you decide to spend time or to own property in Greece, you have to learn how to navigate through the Greek system.
And I think you touch on a point. When in Rome, you act like in Rome. And at this point, as you cannot judge the Greek system based on a Canadian system perspective. And you also highlighted the point of professionals. Whether you're in Canada or in Greece, there's good professionals, there's bad professionals. And I deal with fixing the problems and the mistakes that the bad professionals make. So it's very important to rely on a solid system. And I'm glad to hear that for my next real estate investment in Greece, I have a whole team behind us who can support us. So I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for the discussion. Live, invest, and enjoy life. And I think we're going to be enjoying some whole Chuck's burgers outside. And I understand there's also a trade show happening. So thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
ICS, η μεγαλύτερη ελληνική εταιρεία παροχής συμβουλευτικών υπηρεσιών στη Βόρεια Αμερική. Με εμπειρία 15 ετών στην προάσπιση των συμφερόντων σας στην Ελλάδα. Αναλαμβάνουμε νομικές και εμπορικές υποθέσεις, τη σύνταξη συμβολεογραφικών πράξεων, τη μετάφραση εγγράφων στην ελληνική γλώσσα, την πλήρη διαχείριση ακίνητης περιουσίας, όλες τις κτηματομεσητικές σας συναλλαγές στην Ελλάδα, θέματα μετανάστευσης στον Καναδά. ICS. Εμπιστευτείτε μας.